Hello, and thanks for tuning in to the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo at Channels Television here in Lagos, and I'm joined by Heidi Adams from Voice of America in Washington, D.C.
Thank you. I'm Heidi Adams at the Voice of America. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Channels Television brings you that story.
Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has commenced training for electoral officers in the senior cadre ahead of the February 25 presidential, National Assembly elections and the March 11th governorship and State Assembly elections, respectively. The INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, visited one of the training centers in Abuja, where he restated the Commission's readiness for the scheduled elections and commitment to conducting free, fair and credible polls. The 2023 general elections will be technology-driven, and to this end, the Commission will deploy the Bimodal Voter Accreditation System, BVAS, to 176,846 polling units across the Federation.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, is accompanied by some national commissioners as they visit this training center for electoral officers in Abuja. According to the INEC chairman, the two-day training program is a national exercise for supervising polling unit officers, and this will be followed by that of the presiding officers next week. Activities, the commission says, are indications of its readiness for the forthcoming elections.
This is a further assurance and reassurance to Nigerians of the readiness of the Commission to conduct the election on the 25th of February and the 11th of March. The staff who will be deployed to the field to conduct the elections are being trained, not only in the FCT, but also in all the states nationwide.
Beside this training, INEC maintains that they would sign an oath of neutrality before their deployment to the field.
INEC is not a political party. INEC has no candidates in the election. Our commitment is to the process. We'll make sure that the process is what we said it should be. All of them are going to swear to an oath of neutrality, oath of allegiance to the Federal Republic, and oath of neutrality.
The 2023 general elections will commence on February the 25th with the presidential and National Assembly polls, and INEC believes strongly that the remaining 2 weeks to the election is enough time to train officers who will manage the process.
This two-day training is enough. It's more than enough. We are going to bombard them with both theory, both practice. They will see the cadre, they will work with it. We are going to give them resources enough for them to carry out their functions effectively and efficiently as SPOs.
Thank you. INEC will be deploying a bimodal voter accreditation system, otherwise called BVAS, in a general election for the very first time. The technology, the many say, requires the electoral umpire to give adequate training to his field officers on the election day.
And joining us to discuss this is the chairman, Accountability, Candor and Transparency Network, Mr. Segun Shokwiton. Glad to have you join us here in our studios in Lagos.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Candor always gets us. But let's get straight to the point. Nigerians are headed for the polls in a few days. How prepared are we for this process?
Well, I guess when you say we would mean everybody, all the stakeholders. So that would be, the electorate, the political actors, and then I guess the government and the electoral umpire. And I think if you look at those 4 critical stakeholders, I think you can say that most people are prepared. And in fact, on the part of the electorate, I think I can dare say that they're raring to go. There's a lot of enthusiasm, probably more than we have seen in recent elections. The independent INEC tells us that they're ready. They've been repeating it, and I think at this stage, it's only a week to the elections, more or less. We have to believe them. We have to believe that they are ready. The security forces and security agencies have also said that they're ready, and they're going to make sure that the elections go without any security incidents. The government is also saying that they're ready. So I think Nigeria is ready to go, and we can only hope that everything turns out well, and Nigeria is the winner at the end of it all.
And you're right to point out all of the stakeholders involved in the process, the security agencies, even the National Peace Committee. But regardless of the engagement of INEC with all the stakeholders involved in the process, are you worried about the possibility of electoral violence?
In the history of electioneering in Nigeria, the levels of violence and electoral malpractices may be less in these elections, just for the simple reason of the measures that INEC has put in place. And the effort they have put in to ensure that people understand that technology is going to play a big part in these elections. We're having electronic transmission for the first time. We're having a BVAS machine that will accredit and authenticate identities more accurately for the first time. And we have a portal where people can see the outcome of the elections at each polling unit for the first time online. So, when you put all these factors together, I think that the incentive for violence has been significantly reduced. The politicians are also very intelligent people. So in as much as they want to compromise the outcome of the elections to favor them, they will not do so to the detriment of their interests. So I suspect that the violence that we'll see will be less than we've seen in recent history.
Speaking of the politicians being smart people, but the bimodal voter accreditation system that has been introduced, backed up by the Electoral Act, do you see this as an antidote to the politicians' smartness for rigging?
Whether we're talking about politicians or any other set of human beings in any field of endeavor, people would always try to do what favors them if they can get away with it. So yes, the politicians are going to try to rig. I mean, we've seen that in Osun. In spite of everything that we all knew, it's shocking to find that overvoting still happened. So the politicians will still do this. They will still try. But I think they are beginning to understand, and I'm grateful that the Supreme Court gave the ruling that they did with regards to the Osun elections. So the politicians will now know that, unlike in the past where you rig and you can get away with it because proving rigging has been difficult in past elections, it's going to be much easier now because of the use of technology. The trail of activities will be clear and will be easy to extract and present in court. I want to appeal to our politicians to, let's just play this game and allow the will of the people to prevail.
I hope they'll heed that call. But moving ahead now, at separate meetings with delegations from the United States and the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State, INEC has, over time, provided assurances that the vote of every Nigerian will count. Now, do you share the same sentiment?
I hope so. We can only hope so. When it comes to elections, politicians, Nigeria, those three factors don't combine too well. And in the past, we've seen situations where votes did not count. In fact, the Osun elections, some people were disenfranchised because some politicians tried to game the system. But I think on the overall, from the 2015 elections to the 2019 elections, and I believe that the 2023 elections will be much better than those two elections, votes have counted. The reports of election observers, civil society observers, as well as the international community have been very clear in saying that rigging did happen. It was established. However, the outcome of the elections represented substantially the will of the people. So, will the votes count? Yes, they will, substantially. And I do believe that whoever wins at the end of the day for these elections will be the person that Nigerians chose. People need to understand that these elections in particular, the outcome will reflect the will of the people. So if your candidate loses, take it on the chin, support the winner, and let Nigeria move forward.
The outcome of the elections, but we must leave it there for now. Thank you very much, Mr. Segun Sokutan, for your time on Africa 54. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. After the break, as drought and hunger in Somalia drive thousands across the border, relief groups struggle to keep up with the latest wave of refugees at Kenya's Dadaab camp. Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Haiti Adams in Washington. Record drought and hunger in Somalia are driving thousands to flee to neighboring Kenya for help. Relief groups say the influx of refugees at Kenya's Dadaab camp is stretching the already overcrowded camp's resources. Juma Majanga reports from the refugee camp in Dadaab, Kenya.
Raho Ali is just arriving from Somalia with 4 of her children at the UNHCR refugees transit area in Kenya's northern border town of Dadaab. The 45-year-old mother of 7 says the biting drought in Somalia prompted her to flee and seek relief in Kenya.
On our way to Dadaab refugee camp, I met with different things. People were dying of starvation and hunger. People were disappearing. I have even lost 3 of my children on the journey. I don't know where they are.
Ali is among tens of thousands flocking to Kenyan camps in a new wave of drought-driven refugees. The Kenyan government put a ban on registration of new refugees in the northern border with Somalia. But the UNHCR says it has profiled 80,000 new arrivals in the last few months.
It has overstretched our work, it has overstretched our resources, because for the moment this is an operation that's not attracting a lot of donor attention.
It's really putting strain on our facilities and on our resources because this population was not planned.
With a 5th straight failed rainy season, it is feared that the drought crisis in the Horn of Africa will only worsen. And with parts of Somalia approaching famine, more refugees are expected in the camps. Humanitarian agencies say they are worried about the dwindling attention from the international community on the crisis and are appealing for more aid.
We are gearing up for more arrivals, meaning that we are making plans for more arrivals, but we appeal to the international community to really pay attention to this side of the world because there doesn't seem to be much attention coming our way, probably amid our other priorities internationally, including Ukraine. We are feeling it as compared to previous years and previous influxes and previous emergencies where we got more attention than now.
For thousands fleeing drought and hunger across the border like Raho Ali, their main goal is simply to get some food and shelter. Juma Majanga for VOA News, Dadaab Refugee Camp, Kenya.
The United States Consulate says the participation of Nigerian youths in the democratic process, particularly in the upcoming election, is imperative. The U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Africa Bureau, Molefi, made this remark during a panel discussion on youth involvement in the democratic process, which held at the American Corner in Ikeja. According to Channels Television's data analyst, Babajide Ogunsanwo, the youth bloc aged 18 to 35 make up 42% of the 93.4 million people registered to vote in the country, down from 51% in 2019. Our correspondent, Amarachi Ubani, brings us that report.
Making up the panel of discussants on the theme Youth Involvement in the Democratic Process are Nollywood actor and comedian Ayo Makun, winner Big Brother Nigeria Season 5 Lekon, dancer, choreographer, dance instructor and fitness expert Kafi, and the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs Molefi. While attendees are mostly young people here at the American Corner Ikeja and American Corners in other parts of the country as well. Discussions begin in earnest with Ms. Molefi setting the disclaimer on why America is interested in Nigeria's upcoming elections.
Our hope is that that will be like a big global eyeball, right, to encourage the best behavior of the candidates and the parties and the participants.
The other panelists take on topics sensitizing Nigeria's youth to take interest in governance and being the change they want to see.
There is a systematic problem in the fact that youths cannot participate in elections. Money is like defining the whole thing. So it's not an issue of am I interested or not. I am interested. So the best thing that we say we can now do is talk about it.
For every young person, I would say your PVC is power. The only reason why anybody will want to bribe you is because they know it's powerful. Why do I want to stop you from using a weapon that I know will destroy me? It's because I know it can destroy me. So your PVC is a weapon, and the more of it that can be out there, the less powerful whatever rigging can ever be.
As electioneering and politicking hots up and the countdown to the polls as well, Ayo Makun highlights pressure on entertainers and celebrities to declare support for particular candidates.
Year in, year out, every other government that has been in place, you will agree with me that we haven't gained that satisfaction. And they haven't even affected the youth positively. So everybody is ready to fight this one very strong fight to get the right person in place.
And why do these older celebrities feel the need to sensitize the youth?
I feel that this kind of thing is not yet enough based on Nigeria is like over 65% predominantly a youth population. So there's not enough. In Lagos alone, we have how many millions of people and mostly youths. So I feel that if I'm asked to come and talk like this every day for the next 1 year, I am ready. But how many platforms are doing this?
The panelists feel as long as there is time, more fora is needed to direct Nigeria's youth into being agents of change. Amarachi Ubani, Channels Television News.
Tensions between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda are threatening the region's endangered mountain gorillas. Despite the strain, communities living along both sides of the border have teamed up to improve gorilla conservation. Sinanu Todd reports from Musanze, Rwanda.
You done? Then this side, you just put.
Jospin Mwabunge is studying tourism and conservation at the International University of New Technologies in Goma, a city in the Democratic Republic of Congo on the Rwandan border. He has crossed over to the Musanze district in Rwanda to learn more about community-based conservation from a non-governmental organization called the Red Rocks Initiative for Sustainable Development.
I'm learning here just to try to copy the things, how they are doing here, and do what they made here, copy it in Congo, in my country.
The DRC and Rwanda, together with Uganda, share the Virunga Mountains, a chain of 8 volcanoes that are home to just over half of the world's remaining mountain gorillas. On the DRC side of the mountains, Virunga National Park has not been accessible for at least 9 months due to activities of rebel groups in the region. According to the African Wildlife Foundation, the park's volcanic mountain ranges and endemic species placed it on the UNESCO's World Heritage List in 1979. But political insecurity, poaching and resource extraction have degraded the park to World Heritage in danger status, where the park has remained since 1994. Recent activities of rebel groups in the region have further threatened the park and communities that depend on them.
The situation from Virunga, it was no good, but we are not taking tourists there because of the situation. It's the war for now. Maybe when the peace will be coming again, then we'll be trying to send the people there.
To help, the Red Rocks Initiative in Rwanda is helping communities on both sides of the mountains to share skills in arts, crafts, and community-based tourism activities.
Having the national park being shared between the 3 countries, I always see it as an important thing because gorillas, they don't know the borders. So they move all around freely. And then what we want to do, we want to make sure that what we have done here on the Rwandan side is also shared.
He says the project targets vulnerable women and youth from both Rwanda and Congo by helping them create alternative income through sustainable projects and tourism initiatives.
They don't know why do people go to see the mountain gorillas and pay that much money to go and see them. Because, and they wanted to get direct. So I always see that the more community-based organizations or products that you develop outside of any protected areas that can benefit the locals, it's going to be a part of the protection of the conservation.
Staff says locals from both sides are taking part in the initiative.
The women who come here, sometimes they're very used to their normal ways of living, like growing crops and grazing animals, and sometimes some of them believe that's where it stops. But some of them, members of the community who came here at Red Rocks, they learned different skills, like something dealing with housekeeping, a lot of things in the hospitality management department. Like
Bakazunu says despite tensions, the initiative plans to extend to communities around the Virunga Mountains. Sana Anutot for VOA News, Musanze, Rwanda.
One sport is thriving in Rwanda, and that is street tennis. The government is making sure no class of citizen is left behind as it promotes popular participation in the growing sporting activity. Rwandan sports officials say the game is very affordable and can be played by anyone, provided they have the space to do so.
It's Saturday morning and Eric Muhawenimana is taking part in a game of street tennis. He's been playing street tennis in Rwanda's capital, Kigali, since the sport was introduced last year. On car-free days like this one, local authorities turn the streets of Kigali into a mini court where young and old participate in the game.
At the beginning, it was very complicated to us because we didn't know much about rules of play, but we caught up. Now we are familiar with it.
He was one of many Rwandans who have welcomed the new sport, which was inspired by a partnership with the Barbados government following an official visit to the East African country in November. The smaller courts mean the players must move very quickly to hit the swerve from other opponents.
We're having fun, and when you feel tired, you can ask your teammate to take over. It is very enjoyable.
Rwandan sports officials say the game is very affordable and can be played by anyone provided they have the pace. Olivier Tuyisenge enjoys a conventional game of tennis, which is still popular in the country. Even though his curiosity about street tennis is heightening, for now, the conventional court is still where he spends his Saturday nights.
U.S. Air Force veteran Mark Lindquist has been sleeping outdoors in Fargo, North Dakota, to bring awareness to the need in Ukraine. He visited the war-torn country earlier this year and has since focused on giving back to the Ukrainian people. Nina Vishneva has the story, narrated by Anna Rice.
In Fargo, North Dakota, where winter temperatures dip well below freezing, U.S. Air Force veteran Mark Lindquist is sleeping in a tent with no heating or electricity and just a Ukrainian song keeping him warm.
And I do have the Ukrainian flag hanging outside. I can show you that.
His Operation Sleep Out is aimed at providing humanitarian aid to Ukraine. He spends nights in a tent and travels to nearby towns and villages to collect clothes for Ukrainians and explain why it's important to help.
This is what one man brought this morning. One man from Park Rapids, Minnesota. If one man can do that, imagine if we all pitched in.
After serving in the U.S. Air Force, Lindquist ran unsuccessfully for Congress as the only Democratic congressional candidate in Minnesota's 7th District. But everything changed for him after Russia invaded Ukraine. Lindquist came to Lviv, Ukraine for the first time just weeks after the invasion, bringing warm clothing and medication. Since then, he traveled to Ukraine a few more times, working with volunteers both in Ukraine and abroad. He plans to go again in January.
Whether they be living in Kyiv, living in a village or a trench, They don't get to choose. So I just wanted to show Americans with my actions just how rough it could be and get them to think about the fact that there are people on the other side of the planet who don't have a warm home to go to.
The city of Fargo in North Dakota is one of the coldest in the U.S. Those who want to help Lindquist get a list of necessities from him. At the moment, his priority is orphanages in Ukraine.
Oh, you Lucy, Червона калина, покулилася.
For Nina Vishneva in New York, Anna Rice, VOA News.
When нас славна Україна, розвеселимо.
And that is our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Do check it out. I'm Haiti Adams in Washington. Channels Television has our last word.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Do remember, channelstv.com is your source for news and other programming. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Thanks for watching and goodbye now.